Liberty Fanfare created by John Williams in 1986 for the centennial of the Statute of Liberty. Well, it is an honor to present two men who have been friends in their service to our fine city, the city of Rochester. First, His Honor, the Mayor of Rochester, Ardell Brady, and then former Colonel in the 34th Infantry Division of the National Guard, and currently Rochester Battalion Fire Chief, Eric Kurska.
Well, good afternoon. It is indeed a special honor for me to welcome you to this memorial concert commemorating the 15 years. Unless you're less than 15 years old, you all have vivid memories of that day. Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, two passenger planes hijacked by terrorists crashed into New York's World Trade Towers. Two other planes also crashed that day on a field in Pennsylvania and into the Pentagon. Personally, I was driving into work, a customer service class I organized at Mayo Clinic, a class being held at the Damon House, which is right next to the Foundation House in Southwest Rochester. It was about 7:45 Rochester time when on the car radio I heard the first report of a plane and then another that flew into the World Trade Towers. Initially, an accident. Well, in our class, we quickly turned on the TV and started to see the destruction and understood that it was no accident. The class, which was to begin at 8 a.m., was obviously disrupted to the point it was ultimately canceled that day. As the event unfolded in days of search and recovery, the count stands that there were 2,977 victims that were found, not counting the 41 deaths at Pennsylvania and another 64 at the Pentagon. Included in the 2,977 victims at the World Trade Center were 343 firefighters from New York City, 37 police officers from the New York Port Authority in New Jersey, another 23 New York City police officers, and 8 emergency management techs, a total of 411. Putting this into context and remembering the families of all of those victims and the trauma of those that survived or witnessed the devastation, today and always, I remember the police, fire, EM, first responders, not only here in Rochester, but all of southeast Minnesota, indeed everywhere. Every day they are at risk when they go to work, and we cannot thank them enough. And of course, our military, men and women who are deployed around the world, protecting our country, often leaving families at home while they serve us, and we thank them, of course, as well. I was privileged to visit some of our troops 2 times, once with Governor Pawlenty when we went to Kosovo, where many of our soldiers were from the Rochester area. And a second visit was to Kuwait in March of 2012, where again, many were from Minnesota with the 34th Infantry Division, Red Bull. I'm honored to go, was honored to go at the invitation from Colonel Eric Kurska, battalion chief here in Rochester Fire Department, and was at that time, he was the commanding officer in Kuwait. I know that Eric has had 3 different deployments. On that trip, we brought 10,000 steaks along to be split among 4 camps in Kuwait, and at Camp Arifjan, we grilled 3,000 of those steaks for the troops. The soldiers from Minnesota understood what we were doing and what was happening, but as I walked around the camp that day, talking to many that were not from Minnesota, and asked them or invited them to come that evening or afternoon to have a steak fry, and some of them said, "You came all the way over here to serve us steaks, thank you." And I said, no, we respond, thanks to you for your service. Eric Kurska has nominated the City of Rochester for the Defense Department's Award for Employer Support of the Guards and Reserve, supporting men and women on the Guard and Reserve that are employed by the city. And we received that Pro Patria Award, the highest award, on March 25th, 2012. And before I call Eric up here, I want to just point out that Monday is a big holiday, or not really a holiday, Eid al-Adha. It marks the end of the annual Muslim pilgrimage to Mecca. And as a community, we must always remember that many of our Muslim friends here, they were not responsible for the terrorists on 9/11. And we thank them for their contributions here. And now, please welcome my very good friend and hero, Eric Kurska. Thank you.
On September 11, 2001, 2,996 people were murdered by terrorists. We are here today to remember and honor the victims of 9/11. 9/11 was the opening act of the longest war in our country's history. That war continues to this day. Since 9/11, hundreds of thousands of soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines have deployed overseas to defeat this threat. Countless servicemen and women have served and continue to serve multiple combat deployment in harm's way for us. The families of these servicemen and women also serve. As for me and many others who have served on distant battlefields, Thomas Paine put our hopes into words. Shortly before the start of the American Revolution, Thomas Paine wrote, "If there must be trouble, let it be in my day, that my children may have peace." My fervent hope, expressed by Thomas Paine, was not to be. Today, 15 years after 9/11, my daughter prepares to deploy overseas, while this time I will wait at home. On 9/11, 2,996 innocent people died. 414 of them were first responders rushing in while their fellow citizens tried to get out. 343 firefighters, 71 police officers, they ran in to do their duty and never came out. The sacrifice of the first responders on 9/11 saved thousands of lives. Everywhere you go in this country, a first responder is never far away. They might be in front of you on the sidewalk or the grocery store. They are us. They are part of our community. They are all around us. They stand ready always to rush in. No matter what happens overseas, no matter the success or failures of our foreign policy, our first responders are ready and willing to rush in for all of us.
Canadian physician John McRae was working as a military surgeon in World War I when a close friend was killed. After presiding over the funeral, McRae sat down and wrote out a poem that memorialized the sacrifice that his friend and other soldiers were making throughout the war. McRae himself died near the end of the war of pneumonia contracted during his service. In 1996, Paul Aiken, in the middle of his graduate studies in music at the University of Oklahoma, set Lieutenant Colonel McRae's poem to music. It soon became the first ever winner of the Brock Student Composition Competition and has been sung by choirs all over the world. Flanders Fields. Composer Eric Iwazin writes about a hymn for the lost and the living. He writes, on September 11, 2001, I was teaching my music theory class at the Juilliard School when we were notified of a catastrophe that was occurring several miles south of us in Manhattan. Gathering around a radio in the school's library, we heard the events unfold in shock and disbelief. Afterwards, walking up Broadway on a sun-filled day, the street was full of silent people, all quickly heading to their homes. During the next several days, our great city became a landscape of empty streets and impromptu, heartbreaking memorials mourning our lost citizens, our friends, and our family. But then, on Friday, a few days later, the city seemed to be transformed. On this evening, walking up Broadway, I saw multitudes of people holding candles, singing songs, and gathering in front of those memorials, paying tribute to the lost, becoming a community of citizens of this city, of this country, of this world, leaning on each other for strength and for support. A hymn for the lost and the living portrays those painful days, those days following September 11, 2001, days of supreme sadness. It is intended to be a memorial for these lost souls, gone from this life, but who are forever treasured in our memories. American composer Randall Thompson gave us his most beloved work, Alleluia, in 1940. The next year, he became chair of the music department of the University of Virginia, which had been founded by Thomas Jefferson in 1819. The university asked him in 1943 to commemorate Jefferson's 200th birthday with a new choral work. To create the Testament of Freedom, Thompson chose 4 texts from Jefferson's voluminous output that he felt captured the man, deliberately leaving out Jefferson's most famous text, the Declaration of Independence. The God who gave us life is part of Jefferson's 1774 pamphlet, a summary view of the rights of British America, in which he explained to his fellow members of the First Continental Congress in Philadelphia what he believed were the grievances that Americans could legitimately hold against the British government. The next 2 sections, "We have counted the cost, and we fight not for the glory," are from Declaration of Causes and Necessity of Taking Up Arms from July of 1774. Here, Jefferson explains why Americans felt justified in taking up arms against British oppression, starting with the battles of Lexington and Concord some 3 months earlier. Very late in his life, Jefferson resumed contact with his predecessor as president, John Adams, who for a long time had been on the opposite side of the political issues. In a letter written when he was nearly 80, Jefferson wrote, "I shall not die without a hope." That the cause of liberty for which both men had fought so hard would continue in hope and triumph. We hear now the Testament of Freedom.
Not for glory or for conquest, we exhibit to mankind the
Wow, that's all I can say. Inspired by Walker Evans' Depression-era photographs, Aaron Copland, the man generally considered America's greatest composer, set out to portray in his opera The Tender Land how American farmers struggled to make a life in the Midwest. The most beautiful moment in the opera comes at the end of the first act, when the five principal characters, 2 women and 3 men, join their voices in their common belief in the ultimate value of community, the promise of living, the promise of growing, the promise of ending is labor and sharing and loving. Boston writer and social activist Julia Ward Howe met President Abraham Lincoln in Washington in November of 1861, a few months after the Civil War had begun. At a public military review at Upton Hill, Virginia, that's near Washington, Howe heard a Union regiment singing "John Brown's Body Lies a-Moldering in the Grave" to a tune that had been collected from folk sources by Philadelphia bookkeeper William Steffi some months prior. She had known personally that notorious John Brown, whose work fighting slavery had been supported by her husband Samuel Howe. Inspired by her visit with Lincoln, Julia Howe sat up late at night, shaping words to fit Steffi's folk tune. 3 months later, her new song was published in the Atlantic Monthly and became an instant hit, the most popular song from the Civil War. I won't keep commenting, but that gave me the chills, the shivers. In 1893, Wellesley College English professor Catherine Bates took a cross-country train trip from Boston to Colorado, along the way marveling at the beauty of her country with its spacious skies, amber waves of grain, purple mountain majesties, fruited plain. She was bowled over by the Rockies, especially the 14,000-foot Pikes Peak. One night in Colorado Springs Antler Hotel, she wrote her thoughts into a poem, calling it Pikes Peak. Well, after several poetic rewrites and more than 50 attempts at fitting her words to music, her poem was joined in 1910 to a hymn melody created 30 years earlier by New Jersey organist Samuel Augustus Ward. Ward had died in 1903, never to know that his old hymn tune would become immortalized in America the Beautiful. And I am pleased to present the bandmaster of the Red Bull Band, Chief Warrant Officer David J. Stordala.
Thank you. First of all, how about that chorus? That's your community, your singers, your musicians. Would we be able to get 1,000? It still wouldn't be enough to pay tribute well enough on this day for the sacrifices that were laid down 15 years ago. As I've been preparing for today, I have been repeatedly amazed by the giving spirit of the men and women in our uniformed services. So many stories about 9/11 and the events that transpired after. So many unnamed heroes. So many. And it makes me wonder, what is that special trait, that unique characteristic they possess that others do not? What is it that gives them the urge to serve others? Not many of us possess it. If you look at America's total population, relatively few serve in uniform to protect and defend us. A very small percentage. So what is it? What is that trait? Isaiah 6:8, chapter and verse says, "And I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send? Who will go for us? Then I said, Here I am. Send me." Here I am. Send me. How lucky are we as a community, a state, and a country that we have men and women in our numbers who say, "Here I am, send me." Where there is conflict, send me. When a bomb blast goes off, send me. And they run toward the blast, not away from it. Where there is disaster, send me. And they wade right in to help us. This concert is our moment to pause and look back to 9/11. Say thanks, celebrate, to remember, and to memorialize. But I say that that alone is not enough. Let today also be our call to action. That moving forward from today, we will pledge to rededicate ourselves to really, in a meaningful way, thank, support, and celebrate those who serve us. Those men and women who by their daily service form that invisible safety net stretching across the country, protecting us, defending us each day. Those unique souls who said and who continue to say, "Send me." In these solemn moments, we will remember those who answered that call and through their service were lost to us. In singular devotion, they gave their lives. So we will sound a singular trumpet to honor their service. Please rise now for taps and a moment of silent reflection.
You may be seated, but Would first responders, active duty military personnel, and veterans remain standing so that we may give you our heartfelt thanks for your courage and your service. John Philip Sousa composed his most famous march in 1897 while aboard ship coming home from Europe. He remembered his days as leader of the Marine Band and how he had seen the stars and the stripes flying from the flagship in the grounds of the White House. To my imagination, he recalled, it seemed to be the biggest, grandest flag in the world, and I could not get back under it quickly enough. It was in this impatient, fretful state of mind that the inspiration to compose "The Stars and Stripes Forever" came to me. Well, Sousa completed March in his head during that voyage, writing it down as soon as he could find a piece of paper on his return home. Please rise on the final chorus of the march and join in singing from the inside back cover of your program, Sousa's own words to "The Stars and Stripes Forever."
Rochester Symphony Orchestra Chorus and Friends. Your 34th Infantry Division Red Bull Band. Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us in Echoes of 9/11, a community tribute to remember and to honor those who have given and are still giving so much to keep us all secure and to keep us all safe. Please remain standing and silent for the retiring of the colors.
Thank you once more for being a part of this first, what we hope is of many echoes of 9/11 choral and wind ensemble unions. Thank you so much, and God bless you till we meet again.